Hi, today we're going to be talking about confined space management. My name is Michael Terry, I'm from Momentum Safety and Ergonomics, and this is the 5-Minute Safety Series. So it's important that we understand when we're talking about confined spaces what a confined space actually is, and it's got a very specific definition according to the work health and safety legislation. It's got to have three key things, and the first thing is that it's not mainly or primarily designed as a place where a person normally works or occupies. It's also at atmospheric pressure or normal atmospheric pressure, so not pressurized or depressurized. But probably the most important thing for it to be a confined space is there has to be some sort of risk based on the air that you could be breathing in there. So it could have low oxygen, high oxygen, which could create a risk of explosions, or some sort of harmful concentrations of contaminants, so stuff that you might be breathing that could be harmful to your health. And these are the things that make a confined space particularly hazardous, and why we have specific definitions around it. The types of hazards that we're talking about when we talk about a confined space usually relate to some of these things here. It's usually pretty restricted in its entry and exit, so it's hard for people to easily get in and out of. And that's one of the things that causes people to get trapped in confined spaces. As we said, the atmosphere is usually pretty unsafe, so the fact that we're breathing in or potentially breathing in harmful stuff is often what causes people to potentially pass out in a confined space. As we said, there could be explosions, it could be something like engulfment where either water or maybe something like grain in a silo can rush in and bury a person. And we have all the other typical hazards potentially in confined spaces as well, so noise, manual tasks, mechanical hazards. They're all potentially present as well, but it's the first four there that we really got to watch out for with regards to confined spaces specifically. Once we've identified something as a confined space, we need to do our risk assessment on that space. So there is a particular set of things that you have to look into when you're risk assessing a confined space. It's a really long list. That's the list there that we've got on screen. I'm not going to read through all of that, but we can link to this particular requirement which is in the Code of Practice for Confined Spaces. And so what we would suggest is that you use a specific risk assessment template that's designed to be used for confined spaces, not just your standard risk assessment form. Once we've done our risk assessment, we need to think about how we can control that confined space. And obviously, according to our hierarchy of control, it's important that we consider, do we actually need to go into the confined space? So elimination would obviously be our best option. Once we do decide that yes, we do need to enter that confined space, we should put in place entry permits. So this is a particular set of things that needs to be completed and signed off on before a person is allowed to enter a confined space. So by using an entry permit, we really are controlling who goes in there and what sort of controls they've got in place before they do. We should isolate any energy sources. We should think about what the atmosphere the person is entering into typically would be. This might be through testing, and where there may need to be some sort of ventilation going on as well. We need to have good communication procedures, so a person on the outside who can communicate and make sure the person on the inside is okay. We need to think about things like signage, appropriate training, and the last thing is emergency procedures should something go wrong. So how are we going to get people out? Oftentimes this is going to involve using things like tripods and davit systems to actually lift a person out, so they have to be attached to a harness. So there we go, guys. That's a very quick summary of confined space management, the sort of things that you need to be thinking about. Obviously there's a lot more in this topic, and we'll link to the specifics in the Code of Practice, but this will give you a bit of an idea as to what we should be doing if you happen to identify confined spaces in your workplace. If you don't, they're all good, but if you do, we need to control that entry, risk assess, and think about all those specific controls that are particular to this type of hazard. Thanks for watching the 5-Minute Safety Series. If you felt like you got some value out of these videos, please click on the screen to see some of the other videos in the 5-Minute Safety Series, or otherwise, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel.